They say blood is thicker than water. Mine offered me a glass of water just to watch me drown in it. My son, my own flesh and blood, just stole the empire I built, and he did it with a smile. Like this story? Hit that subscribe button and follow along to see how this plays out. The first hit wasn't a text message. It wasn't a hushed phone call. It was a 10 a.m. press release, blasted across every financial network that lit up the 80-inch television in my study. I was on my third cup of coffee, the one I always have before diving into the quarterly reports, when my own face stared back at me, smiling benignly from a photo taken 2 years ago. The chyron at the bottom of the screen read, Vanguard Living. Shake up. Eleanor Vance steps down. Marcus Vance and Chloe. Vance to helm new era. I didn't step down. I was pushed. No, I was thrown. My mug slipped from my fingers. The porcelain, a custom piece from a potter in Kyoto, shattered on the Italian marble floor. Hot coffee splashed across my ankle, but I didn't feel the burn. I couldn't feel anything except the sudden, crushing vacuum in my chest. The remote was right next to me, but I couldn't move to turn up the sound. I just watched, frozen, as my son, Marcus, and his wife, Chloe, stood at a podium. My son, my golden boy, the kid I'd put through Wharton, the kid I'd bought a Tribeca condo for as a graduation present. He looked impeccable in a Tom Ford suit I probably paid for. His hand rested possessively on the small of Chloe's back. Chloe. She was a masterpiece of ambition, all sharp angles and sharper stilettos. She was the one who had been pushing the, Mom, you need to relax, enjoy your golden years narrative for months. I'd mistaken her concern for affection. What a fool. A 72-year-old fool who'd built $1 billion home furnishings empire from the classified section of the Village Voice and a $5,000 loan in OM. Paid back in 6 months, Chloe was speaking. Her voice, usually so saccharine and breathy around me, was now crisp, authoritative. We are deeply grateful for Eleanor's vision, she said, her eyes scanning the teleprompter like a shark scanning for blood. She built a tremendous foundation, but Marcus and I are excited to pivot Vanguard Living towards a more aggressive, digitally native future. Pivot? Foundation? I wasn't a foundation. I was the whole goddamn building. I sank into my leather Eames chair, the one I'd designed the prototype for myself back in '88. The room, my penthouse overlooking Central Park, suddenly felt like a cage. Every curated piece of art, every first edition book, every handcrafted rug, it was all a monument to a life of hustle, a life of 20-hour days and missed vacations. I didn't have a partner. I was the partner. I was the provider, the boss, the bank, and the mother, all rolled into one. I'd started Vanguard Living in a dusty Queens warehouse, refinishing old furniture. I'd hauled dressers up 5-story walk-ups myself, my knuckles bleeding, while Marcus was safe at the best daycare in the city. I'd faced down skeptical bankers, sexist suppliers, and 2 recessions. I'd ground my youth into dust to build this legacy, a legacy I had always intended to leave to him, and he just took it. My phone, a sleek black slab on my glass desk, buzzed. It was Marcus, not a call. A text, Mom, don't be mad. We'll talk tonight. It was just time. Chloe and I are taking you to Per Se to celebrate your retirement. Celebrate. The word hung in the air, grotesque and insulting. This wasn't a retirement. It was a coup. My hands were shaking, but not from weakness. It was rage, a cold, seismic fury that started in my gut and spread through my veins like ice. I thought back on the last 3 months, the innocent questions. Mom, can you just sign this stack? It's just quarterly tax filings. Mom, Chloe is a whiz at logistics. Why don't we let her handle the supply chain ops? Give yourself a break. Mom, we found this great new wealth manager. He thinks you should move your majority shares into a different trust. It's better for estate planning. The gaslighting had been low-key, brilliant, and utterly ruthless. They had used my love, my trust, and my fatigue against me. They had slowly, meticulously, paper by paper, conversation by conversation, isolated me from my own company. I'd signed the papers. I had signed them all, believing I was securing his future, when I was really just signing my own corporate death warrant. I thought of the sacrifices. The school plays I'd missed because I was closing a deal in Chicago. The birthdays where I'd sent an expensive gift instead of being there. I'd justified it all by telling myself I was building something for him. That all this work, all this empire, would be his armor against the world. And he had taken that armor, melted it down, and forged it into a knife, which he just slid between my ribs. Chloe's face was still on the screen. She was smiling, that tight, polished smile I'd always found unsettling. Eleanor's legacy is secure, she purred. We're just future-proofing it. Future-proofing. A sterile corporate buzzword for theft. I finally picked up my phone. I didn't text Marcus back. I opened my contacts and scrolled past the A list of my lawyers, past the board members, past my private banker. I scrolled all the way down to a name I hadn't called in 5 years. A name I'd kept in my phone for this exact kind of emergency. The kind of break glass in case of Armageddon contact every person who builds an empire must have. My son thought he was a king because he'd stolen the crown. He'd forgotten who he'd stolen it from. I wasn't just Mom. I was Eleanor Vance, the woman who'd turned $5,000 into $1 billion brand. I'd fought bigger, meaner, and smarter sharks than him and Chloe combined. They thought they'd won. They thought they were sitting in the driver's seat. They had no idea that I still held the keys. They had the company, yes, but I had the scorched earth file, a little contingency plan I'd built into the company's original charter. A failsafe so toxic, so devastating, that activating it would be like pulling the pin on a grenade. I took a deep breath, the smell of spilled coffee sharp in the air. The shock was fading, and the familiar cold calculus of strategy was taking its place. Celebrate my retirement? I whispered to the empty room. Oh, you bet we will, kids. I dialed the number. A gruff voice answered on the second ring. It's Eleanor, I said, my voice steady, the tremor completely gone. I need you. It's time to call in that favor and bring a notary. They wanted a new era. I was about to give them one. The man who walked into my penthouse 2 hours later wasn't a lawyer. His name was Arthur Art Crowley, and he looked less like a corporate fixer and more like a retired longshoreman. He was a bull of a man, with a face like a weathered catcher's mitt and hands that had seen real work. He'd been my late father's problem solver, and I'd inherited his loyalty along with a portfolio of now-defunct municipal bonds. Art was old school. He was the human equivalent of a locked vault. He didn't say hello. He just walked to the wet bar, ignored the $500 a bottle scotch, and poured himself a glass of tap water. It's bad, he said. It wasn't a question. They took it, Art. The whole thing. He nodded, slow and deliberate. The trust documents. The ones I told you not to sign. He's my son, I said, the words tasting like ash. I know, and she's his wife. Art never minced words. He despised Chloe. He'd once told me she had all the sincerity of a $3 bill. I should have listened. They've called a press conference. They're at the flagship store right now, probably popping champagne. Let 'em, Art grunted. He finished his water and set the glass down. They're celebrating the win. They ain't seen the cost yet. You ready to pull the file? I am, I said, my voice hardening. But not yet. They've invited me to dinner. Per se, to celebrate? Art actually smiled. It was a terrifying sight. Good, go, wear your best. Look confused, look weak. Let 'em get comfortable. Let 'em think they just put the old lady out to pasture. He tapped his temple. The war ain't won on the battlefield. It's won up here. You know what's in that file. They don't. The scorched earth file wasn't just a legal document. It was a bomb. When I'd first taken Vanguard public in the late 90s, I'd had to make deals. Some were with less than reputable partners. My first big distribution contract, the one that got me into every state, was with a logistics company that, let's say, had some very colorful founders, men with connections that didn't show up on LinkedIn. The scorched earth file contained the original unredacted contracts. It contained proof of cash handoffs, recorded conversations I was never supposed to keep, and a paper trail that led directly to a shell company in the Cayman Islands that laundered, well, everything. If that file ever saw the light of day, Vanguard Living wouldn't just pivot, it would implode. The SEC would freeze operations in an hour. Our stock, which was my son's new favorite toy, would be worth less than the paper it was printed on, and a few very dangerous, very quiet men would be very, very unhappy with the new leadership. I had created it as a mutually assured destruction-style insurance policy. If I ever went down, I was taking the whole ship with me. I just never, in my darkest nightmares, thought I'd have to use it against my own son. I need you to get the original from the vault in Zurich, I told Art. Have it on my desk by Monday. I'll be back before you've finished dessert, he said, and was gone. 3 hours later, I walked into Perse. The maitre d', who had known me for 20 years, rushed over, his face a mask of professional panic. He'd seen the news. Mrs. Vance, an honor, your family is waiting. He couldn't meet my eye. I'd dressed carefully, not in a power suit, not in revenge red. I wore a simple, elegant beige cashmere dress. I looked soft. I looked old. I let a faint tremor stay in my hand as I clutched my handbag. I wanted them to see exactly what they expected to see. A frail old woman, blindsided and heartbroken. They were at the best table, the one overlooking Columbus Circle. Marcus jumped up when he saw me, his face a mess of feigned concern and real, squirming guilt. "Mom, you look great," he stammered, pulling out my chair. "Of course she does," Chloe chirped, not bothering to stand. She was wearing a blindingly white architectural dress that made her look like a hostile takeover in human form. Her diamonds were new, bought with my money, no doubt. A little rest and relaxation is just what you needed. We've already ordered the champagne. The good champagne. She raised her flute. To you, Eleanor. To a long and happy retirement. You've earned it. Marcus raised his glass, his eyes pleading with me. Please, Mom, just go along. Don't make a scene. I raised my glass of water. Retirement, I echoed, my voice a little wobbly. It's all so sudden. I don't think I've quite processed the news. Chloe's smile tightened. Just a fraction. Oh, we know. That's why we wanted to do this. To show you this isn't an ending. It's a transition. You've been carrying this burden for so long. Burden, I repeated, letting my gaze drift to Marcus. Is that what I was doing, Marcus? Carrying a burden? My son flinched. No, Mom, of course not. Chloe just means, the day-to-day, the grind. You hated the Q4 projections. You always said so. I hate cilantro, Marcus. It doesn't mean I want it banned from the planet. The Q4 projections, I said, taking a sip of water, were my job. A job I was rather good at. And you were amazing. Chloe cut in, all bright, terrifying teeth. Legendary, but the market's changing. It's all about influencers and drops and Web3 integration. It's a whole new world, Eleanor. It's not your world anymore. The condescension was so thick I could have cut it with my butter knife. She was talking to me like I was a toddler who didn't understand why I couldn't have ice cream for breakfast. My world? I built the world she was now playing in. I'd forgotten more about business logistics before she'd finished her communications degree than she would ever know. Web3, I said, testing the word. That sounds complicated. You'll have to explain it to your old mother. Marcus visibly relaxed. I was playing the part. He thought I was rolling over. It's nothing, Mom, just digital assets. Don't worry about it. Exactly, Chloe said, patting his hand. Marcus is going to focus on the new Vanguard Ventures arm. I'll be handling day-to-day operations as CEO. That was a new knife twist. CEO? I thought you were handling logistics, dear. Marcus and the board felt my vision was more holistic, she said, her eyes flashing with triumph. She'd done it. She'd outplayed him, too. She hadn't just married the prince. She'd stolen the crown for herself and left him as the figurehead. My son was a fool in a $5,000 suit, and he didn't even know it. The rest of the dinner was a masterclass in gaslighting. They talked about their vision for a global, synergistic brand. They used words like disruption and hypergrowth. They were going to gut the legacy lines, my foundational, high-profit, handcrafted furniture, and replace them with cheap, influencer-designed crap to be dropped on TikTok. They weren't just taking my company. They were going to turn it into a hollow, fast-fashion shell of itself. I just nodded and smiled and asked simple questions. I let them explain their grand plans to me, the founder, as if I were a work-study intern. By the time the check came, they were glowing, drunk on their own brilliance and my apparent submission. Marcus paid the bill, on the new corporate card. I noted, and they walked me to the elevator. Mom, I'm glad you're taking this so well, Marcus said, giving me a hug. It felt like hugging a stranger. We really do want you to be happy, Eleanor, Chloe said, adjusting her white jacket. The penthouse is yours for life, of course. Consider it a severance. I stepped into the elevator. I turned to face them. The doors began to slide shut. It was a lovely dinner, I said, my voice suddenly clear and firm. The wobble was gone. My hand was steady. I looked directly at Chloe. Her smile faltered. She saw it. The shift. "You're right about one thing, dear," I said, as the doors closed, leaving only a 6-inch gap. "It is a new world, and you have no idea what's coming." The doors sealed with a quiet, expensive thud. The elevator ride down from Per Se was silent. My chauffeur, a man I'd employed for 15 years, saw my face in the rearview mirror as I slid into the back of the Maybach. He didn't ask about the celebration. He just put on the quiet jazz station I preferred and navigated the traffic back to the Upper East Side with the smooth, unbothered competence I paid him for. The mask I'd worn all night, the frail, confused old woman, had dissolved the second the elevator doors thudded shut. The beige cashmere dress felt like a costume. Beneath it, my blood was running cold. No, not cold. It was chilled. It was the temperature of precision, the temperature of a surgeon's scalpel. I wasn't heartbroken anymore. I wasn't grieving the loss of my son. The mother who had cried over a shattered coffee mug that morning was gone. She'd been a casualty of the coup, and in her place the founder had returned. The 72-year-old woman who'd faked a tremor in her hand was now mapping out a war. Chloe thought she was a disruptor, because she knew how to use hashtags. She and Marcus thought they had pulled off the heist of the century. They were children playing with a loaded gun, and they had just handed me the ammunition. When I walked back into my penthouse, the shattered mug was gone. My housekeeper had cleaned it up. I walked straight past the living room, past the stunning views of the park, and into my study. This wasn't a home anymore. It was a command center. My first call wasn't to Art. He was in the air, untouchable, heading to Zurich. My first call was to a number I knew by heart, one that wasn't saved in my phone. It rang twice. "Hello?" The voice was timid, professional, and utterly reliable. "Brenda, it's Eleanor." There was a sharp intake of breath. "Mrs. Vance, I heard what they did. It's all over the internal memos. Chloe sent a new org chart. It's disgusting." Brenda had been my executive assistant for 35 years. She was the one who knew where every body was buried, because she'd been the one to hand me the shovel. When Chloe had started her restructuring a month ago, her first move was to offer Brenda a lavish early retirement package. When Brenda refused, saying she'd leave when I left, Chloe had spitefully reassigned her to the corporate archives. A windowless office in the sub-basement, tasked with digitizing 40 years of company history. A move designed to humiliate. "They haven't taken your keycard yet, have they?" I asked. "They wouldn't dare," she sniffed, a spark of the old fire returning. "They forgot to disable my high-level access." Chloe is sloppy. She's all front-end, Mrs. Vance, all style. Her digital security is probably just Chloe CEO 123. I almost smiled. "That's what I'm counting on." "I need you to stay right where you are." "You're no longer in the archives, Brenda. You're my mole." A mole? "Mrs. Vance, I'm a 68-year-old grandmother." "And that's why you're perfect," I said, my voice like steel. "No one sees you. No one suspects you. You are a harmless old lady just like me. I need everything. I want every new vendor contract she signs, every asset she tries to liquidate, every email she sends. I want to know what she's ordering for lunch." "She's liquidating?" Brenda's voice was sharp. "She's pivoting, Brenda. She's going to gut the heritage lines, my lines. She's going to turn my company into a fast-fashion dumpster fire." "Not on my watch," Brenda said. The timidity was gone. "They're having a company-wide New Era town hall on Monday. Mandatory attendance. I'll be there. And I still have the admin password to the main server. The real one, not the one they gave Chloe." "Good. Don't download anything yet. Just watch. And wait for my signal." I hung up. Phase 1. Internal surveillance. Check. My second call was to a different kind of asset. If Brenda was my eyes and ears, Salvatore Sal Russo was my ghost in the machine. Sal was a paranoid genius, gray-hat hacker I'd put on retainer a decade ago after a nasty corporate espionage attempt from a competitor. He ran a cybersecurity firm out of a nondescript office park in New Jersey, and he owed me big time. I'd made his legal troubles with the federal government evaporate. "Sal, it's Eleanor Vance." Holy... He caught himself. Mrs. V. Long time. I thought you were retired. Saw the news. Bummer. The news is premature, I said. I've been locked out of my own system. My son and his wife have changed all the C-suite credentials. Sal laughed, a high, wheezy sound. Amateurs. They shut the front door, but they forgot you built the damn house. You still got the blueprints. What do you need? I need root access. I want a mirror on Chloe Vance's new corporate email. I want a flag on any financial transfer over $50,000. I want to see their new Web3 strategy, and I want to know who they're talking to. Easy, Sal said. These new school execs, they got no discipline. They're probably running the whole goddamn company off their iPhones. They're gonna have security holes you could drive a truck through. Give me 2 hours. You'll have a real-time feed of everything. It'll be like you're sitting on her lap. And Sal, I added, no trace. I don't exist. You don't exist. This conversation never happened. You gotta ask? You're my favorite client, Mrs. V. This one's on the house. Consider it a professional courtesy. He hung up. Phase 2, digital dominance. Check. I sat back. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Landed. Geneva. Wheels up in 18 hours. It was Art. The clock was ticking. Now, for the fun part. The part Chloe, in all her MBA-fueled brilliance, could never have anticipated. She was so focused on TikTok influencers and future-proofing that she'd forgotten about the past. She'd forgotten about the real, dirty work that goes into building an empire. I pulled an old leather-bound address book from my desk drawer. Not a single name in here was in any of my digital devices. This was my old world book. I flipped to S. I picked up the landline, a secure line Sal had installed years ago. I dialed a number with a 305 area code. It was answered on the first ring, not with a hello, but with silence. This is Eleanor Vance, I said. A gravelly voice on the other end, thick with a Miami Cuban accent, finally spoke. I was wondering when you would call. We saw the news. We are concerned. This new CEO, this girl, she does not seem to appreciate the logistics business. This was Mr. Sanchez. He and his associates ran the shipping company that had given Vanguard its first major distribution deal. The deal that was cemented in the scorched earth file. They moved my furniture, and in exchange my trucks were guaranteed safe and speedy passage through certain ports. They were not men who appreciated pivots. She's very ambitious, I said, choosing my words carefully. She has a new vision, all about hypergrowth. I'm not sure she fully understands the delicate nature of our long-standing agreements. A long pause. Delicate is the word, Eleanor. We have contracts. We have expectations. This hypergrowth. It sounds loud. It sounds visible. We do not like visible. I agree, I said smoothly, which is why I'm calling as a courtesy. She is having a company-wide town hall on Monday, announcing her new strategy. I imagine she will be terminating all legacy contracts. Terminating, he repeated. The word sounded like a threat. That would be unwise. I just wanted to make sure my old friends were aware of the change in management, I said. So you could perhaps introduce yourselves to Chloe. Make sure she understands the importance of your services. Thank you, Eleanor, Mr. Sanchez said. We will be sure to welcome her. You have been a good partner. It is a shame. Yes, I said, a thin smile on my face. It truly is. I hung up the phone. I had just aimed a cruise missile at my own company, and it felt incredible. Chloe wanted to be CEO. She wanted to sit in the big chair. Fine. Let's see how she handles her first logistics meeting. Let's see how her Web3 integration plans sound to a man who still settles contracts with a handshake and a veiled threat. I walked to the bar and poured myself a very large, very expensive scotch. Art was in the sky. Brenda was in the basement. Sal was in the server. And Mr. Sanchez was about to make a house call. The game was on. That scotch I poured tasted like victory. The ice clinking in the glass was the only sound in the penthouse, a sharp counterpoint to the storm raging in my head. I wasn't just planning a counter-move. I was planning an annihilation. My laptop chimed, a soft encrypted tone. Sal. A secure message popped up. You're in. Merry Christmas. The back door is wide open. A new window bloomed on my screen. It wasn't just an email mirror. It was Chloe's entire digital life. Her new corporate inbox. Her personal inbox, her calendar, her text messages, even a link to her new Vanguard Ventures cloud drive. The arrogance of youth. She'd tied her entire identity to the company mainframe, and Sal had just handed me the keys to her kingdom. I spent the next 2 hours in a state of icy, surgical rage. It was worse than I thought. Chloe wasn't just pivoting. She was performing a corporate lobotomy. The first file I opened was the new org chart. 12 vice presidents, all people I had hired, all with over 20 years of loyalty to me, were gone. Their access was cut, their severance packages insulting, their termination effective immediately. Brenda's name was at the very bottom, under a new department called Legacy Archives Management, a glorified janitorial closet. The second file was the New Era Town Hall presentation for Monday. It was a 50-slide monstrosity of pastel colors, corporate buzzwords, and photos of Chloe. The centerpiece of her new strategy was called V-Drop. She was planning to liquidate the entire Heritage Collection, my signature line of custom, high-margin, handcrafted furniture, and use the capital to fund a series of exclusive collaborations with 19-year-old TikTok influencers. She was trading oak and mahogany for plastic and particle board. She was going to sell the crown jewels to buy costume jewelry. And the financials. God, the financials! In the 3 days since she and Marcus had locked me out, she had already signed a $3 million contract for a complete redesign of the executive floor, leased a $50,000 a month Gulfstream, G500 for corporate travel, transferred a 7-figure signing bonus from the company's operating budget directly into a joint account with Marcus. She wasn't just a thief, she was a stupid one. She was bleeding cash, and she was leaving a paper trail a mile wide. This wasn't a business strategy. It was a smash and grab. I spent all of Saturday sifting through the data, watching the digital wreckage unfold. I watched Chloe and Marcus text each other. Chloe, just bought the most insane white-on-white Bentley. We deserve it. Marcus, babe, maybe we should cool it? It's still Mom's money. Chloe, it's our money now. Stop being weak. My son, the Wharton graduate, reduced to a spineless accessory. Then on Saturday night, Sal's feed gave me something new. He'd tapped into their Tribeca condo's security system. I watched in real time as they returned from a dinner, laughing, Chloe carrying a new designer bag. And then they saw it. On the welcome mat of their multi-million-dollar condo, the one I had paid for, was a small, unmarked wooden crate. It wasn't large, maybe the size of a shoebox. I watched Chloe, annoyed, try to nudge it with her $1,200 stiletto. It didn't budge. I could see Marcus try to lift it. It was fixed, nailed to the floor. He had to go back inside and get a crowbar. They both looked confused, maybe thinking it was a high-end PR gift. He pried the lid open. The camera was high definition. I saw the moment Chloe's face went from smug annoyance to a mask of bone-white, reptilian fear. Inside, nestled on a bed of what looked like seaweed, was a large, dead fish. Mr. Sanchez didn't believe in digital. He was an old-school analog messenger. I watched Chloe stumble back, clutching her throat. I saw Marcus, the idiot, poking at it, before the message finally penetrated his thick skull. Within seconds, my feed of Chloe's phone lit up. Chloe to her new head of logistics, a 28-year-old I'd never heard of. Who the hell is Sanchez shipping? Find out, now. Chloe to Marcus, who was standing right next to her. Call your mother. Ask her what she did. I poured myself a glass of water, my hand perfectly steady. Welcome to the C-suite, kids. You wanted to run the company? Fine. Run the company. I slept for the first time in 72 hours. All day Sunday I watched the fallout. Chloe was a wreck. She was in a full-blown panic. She wasn't texting about Bentleys. She was texting her new terrified legal team, who had no idea why their new CEO was babbling about dead fish. She had canceled all 3 legacy contracts with Sanchez's shell companies, citing them as redundant. Now she was finding out just how redundant they were. She was a child who had just poked a sleeping grizzly bear, and she was looking for an adult. But she'd already fired all the adults in the room. Monday, 5 a.m. The city was black and silver. The penthouse was silent. My private elevator chimed. The doors opened. Art Crowley walked in. He looked like he'd flown through a war zone, his clothes rumpled, his eyes heavy, but he was a bulldog. And he had the leash. He was carrying a battered aluminum-sided briefcase. Not a fancy one, a workman's case. He set it on my glass desk. The sound echoed. Clack, clack. He undid the 2 latches. It's all here. He grunted, his voice like gravel. The originals. The Cayman account ledgers. The logistics manifests. The original audio recordings from '98, digitized. He pulled out a single 3-inch thick binder. It wasn't a file. It was a tome, bound in black leather, unlabeled, the Scorched Earth file. He pushed it across the desk. Eleanor, he said, and it was the first time in 20 years he hadn't called me Mrs. Vance. You open this, you pull this trigger, there's no going back. This ain't just a corporate fight. This burns everything. The stock, the board, the brand, everything. Your son included. You sure you're ready to set the whole goddamn world on fire? I looked at the binder. I thought of the dead fish. I thought of Brenda in the basement. I thought of the V-drop and the 12 VPs who'd given me their lives, tossed out like last week's trash. I placed my hand on the cool leather cover. Art, the house is already on fire. I'm just redirecting the flames. My laptop chimed. A company-wide blast from Chloe. Subject, Town Hall, 9 a.m. sharp. The future is now. My phone buzzed. A text from Brenda. I'm in the auditorium, back row. You should see this place. She's got a DJ, a f***ing DJ. I opened Sal's feed on my 80-inch television. A live stream link for remote employees. I clicked it. The screen flickered, and there it was. The stage I'd built. A podium with a hideous new logo, a neon pink V pulsing behind it. And there was Chloe, looking pale under the stage lights, her hands shaking, trying to adjust the microphone. Showtime, I whispered. I took my seat, the black binder heavy in my lap. The 80-inch screen in my study flickered to life. Sal was patching me in. The auditorium at the corporate headquarters, my auditorium, with the custom acoustic panels I'd had imported from Sweden, was unrecognizable. It was a circus. Chloe had replaced the elegant teak-paneled stage with a blinding white platform, flanked by towers of subwoofers. A 20-something with a laptop was DJing, pumping a generic bass-heavy track into a room full of shell-shocked employees. And behind the podium, the neon pink V logo pulsed like a cheap motel sign. Art Crowley, standing by my bar, just grunted. Tacky. It's worse than tacky, Art, I said, settling into my chair. It's incompetent. My phone buzzed on the glass desk. A text from Brenda. They're handing out branded V-drop energy drinks. The whole place smells like battery acid and anxiety. She's 10 minutes late. Right on cue, the DJ cranked the music, and Chloe finally strode onto the stage. She was dressed for battle, a severe military-style white blazer. She was trying for power, but she just looked brittle. Her eyes, magnified on my screen, were darting, hunted. The dead fish, I presumed, had not been part of her synergy plan. She tapped the mic, and a spike of feedback shrieked through the room. Wow, what energy, she yelled, her voice thin. Welcome to the future of Vanguard living. A few people in the front row, new hires I didn't recognize, clapped. The rest of the room, my veterans, just stared. I know, she continued, gripping the podium so hard her knuckles were white. I know change is hard. I know some people are stuck in the past. On the desk, my second screen, Sal's feed of her personal phone, lit up. Even as she spoke, she was vulnerable. She was so addicted to her device, she couldn't even put it in her pocket for her big CEO debut. It was sitting right on the podium, screen up, as she launched into a jargon-filled rant about recontextualizing the domestic space. A new text message appeared on her phone. I read it at the same instant she did. It was from an unknown, encrypted number. Did you enjoy the gift? We need to discuss the termination of our contract. 11 a.m. Your office. Do not be late. I watched, in glorious high definition, as Chloe's face went blank. She saw the text. Her eyes widened, just for a fraction of a second. She lost her place, She stammered, the digital assets and she'd just met Mr. Sanchez. My phone buzzed again. Brenda. She looks like she's going to puke. Is she okay? Wait, no, I don't care. She's fine, Brenda, I muttered to the screen. She's just getting her first real taste of logistics management. Chloe recovered, but the damage was done. The swagger was gone. She was running on pure adrenaline and fear. She clicked to the next slide in her presentation. A picture of my flagship heritage collection, the handcrafted heirloom quality pieces that had built my reputation. And then, a giant red X appeared over it. Our biggest drain, she announced, her voice regaining a nasty, spiteful edge, has been our legacy products. These dusty, heavy, old pieces. They're for Grandma's house. But we are a brand for now. We are a brand for the future. So, as of today, we are liquidating the entire heritage line. A collective gasp went up from the auditorium. Brenda's text came an instant later. The master craftsmen from the workshop are walking out. They're literally leaving. She's destroying 40 years of work. I looked at Art. He was staring at the screen, his face a mask of thunder. That's it, I said. I picked up my secure line to Sal. She's torching the workshops, I said. No preamble. I see it. Sal's voice was tight. This chick is a moron. She took $1 million signing bonus on Friday. She called it executive compensation. I want it back. I want it back right now. Clawback? From a joint account? That's aggressive. Yes, Sal, it is. And I want her to get the notification. Oh, hell yes, Sal said. This is the fun stuff. One digital extraction coming up. On the big screen, Chloe was high on her own supply. And with the capital from that liquidation, we will fund the V-Drop series. Our first collab is with Trixie Talks and it is fire. She clicked, and a picture of a neon orange plastic chair shaped like a mouth filled the screen. I felt a physical wave of nausea. Do it, Sal, I said. As Chloe said the words, future-proofing our profits, her phone on the podium lit up again. This time, it wasn't a text. It was a bank alert. Vanguard Bank, alert. A wire transfer of $1,000 has been reversed from account ending 4451. A second alert followed. Vanguard Bank, alert. Account 4451 has been frozen pending internal audit for unauthorized executive fund transfer. Chloe stopped. The silence in the auditorium was total, broken only by the thump, thump, thump of the DJ's moronic beat. She stared at her phone. She looked up, her eyes wide, scanning the crowd. She knew. She knew someone was in the system. But who? Brenda texted. She's just standing there. She's gone completely white. It's amazing. What did you do? I wasn't done. Art, I said. He was already at the scanner. He'd known what was coming. He opened the scorched earth binder. He didn't take a page of financials. He didn't take a page of incriminating manifests. He took one single, simple page. The 1998 logistics contract. The original wet ink signature of Mr. Sanchez next to the real name of his shell corporation. A name that, if Googled, would bring up a dozen RICO cases. Art scanned it. Sal, I said into the phone. I'm sending you a PDF. I want you to send it to Chloe's phone, from an internal email. From who? I smiled. From Legacy Archives, Management Vanguard, com. Subject line, found this in the dusty archives. Sal let out a sound, a sort of high-pitched cackle. You are a cold-blooded woman, Mrs. V. Sending now. On the stage, Chloe was hyperventilating. Marcus had stood up in the front row, a look of dog-like confusion on his face. Chloe? Babe? You okay? She didn't hear him. She was looking at her phone as the email notification popped up. I watched her tap it. I watched her open the PDF. I watched her face go from white to gray to a sickly, pale green. She knew. She didn't just know I was in the system. She now knew I had the file. She knew the dead fish on her doorstep wasn't a prank. It was a business partner. A partner I had just proven I was still connected to. She had tried to delete the legacy, and the legacy had just bared its f***ing teeth. She dropped the phone. It clattered on the stage. She stammered, backing away from the podium. I have to. I need some water. She turned and ran off the stage. The auditorium erupted. The livestream camera zoomed in on the empty podium, the neon V pulsing, as the DJ, in a moment of sublime stupidity, dropped a new beat. Sal cut the feed. My study was silent again. Art Crowley picked up the black binder. He snapped the 2 latches shut. 11 a.m., he said. They have a meeting with Sanchez. I stood up and smoothed the front of my dress. I felt light. I felt 72 years young. Yes, they do, I said, walking to the door. And I don't want to be late. Get the car, Art. I think it's time I celebrated my retirement in person. The ride in the Maybach was silent. It was 10:45 a.m. Art was at the wheel, his massive shoulders a silent statement of intent. He wasn't my problem solver today. He was my adjutant, my enforcer. The air in the car wasn't tense. It was cold. It was the absolute zero of a decision made, a path chosen. The grief I'd felt for my son was gone, cauterized. The mother had been put to rest. The founder was here to clean house. We pulled up to the curb of the Vanguard building, the glass and steel monument I had built from the ground up. I hadn't set foot in it since I'd been betrayed. The lobby was a different kind of chaotic from the auditorium. The usual morning buzz was replaced with hushed, fearful clusters of employees. They'd seen the town hall. They'd seen Chloe run. They knew the ship was taking on water. 2 new security guards, rent-a-cops I didn't recognize, probably hired by Chloe for their vibe, stepped in front of me as I moved toward the private executive elevator. "Hold up, ma'am. You need a visitor's pass," one of them said, all puffed up importance. I didn't stop walking. I didn't even look at him. Art, who was 3 steps behind me, simply moved. He didn't touch the guard. He just loomed. He placed one of his catcher's mitt hands on the elevator's call button. "She owns the building," Art grunted, "and you're standing in her way." The guard looked from Art to me and back to Art. He suddenly realized who I was. He went pale and practically jumped out of his skin. "Mrs. Vance, I'm sorry." The elevator doors chimed and opened. We stepped in. The ride up was quiet. The doors chimed again, opening onto the 50th floor, the executive floor, or what used to be the executive floor. I stepped out, and I had to physically stop myself from recoiling. She'd ruined it. My beautiful, warm, teak and leather-paneled sanctuary was gone. She'd had it all ripped out. It was a sterile, white-on-white nightmare. Cold marble floors, hostile white couches, and everywhere, that hideous, pulsating neon pink V was burned into the walls. It looked less like a billion-dollar headquarters and more like a high-end dentist's office in a bad sci-fi movie. Brenda was standing there, right by the elevator, as if she'd been waiting for me. She was dressed in her Sunday best, a look of pure, unadulterated triumph on her face. "Good morning, Mrs. Vance," she said, her voice crisp. "They're in the main conference room. And they have arrived." She held out a single black and gold key card. "Your founder's key. I reactivated it. It overrides all other credentials. I believe you're—" She smirked. "New CEO. Forgot it existed." I took the card. It was heavy, solid. "Thank you, Brenda. Have the legal team on standby." "They're already in my office," she said, without batting an eye. Art and I walked down the hall. My old office, my office, was open. I glanced inside. The Trixie Talks plastic mouth chair was sitting where my Eames lounge chair used to be. The rage returned, pure and clean. We reached the main conference room. The heavy oak doors were closed. I could hear a muffled, angry voice from inside. "Chloe." I didn't knock. Art Crowley, God bless him, simply reached out and pulled both doors open at once. They slammed against the stoppers, a bang that echoed like a gunshot. The scene in the room froze. At the far end of the 30-foot table sat Mr. Sanchez. He was exactly as I pictured. An immaculate silver suit, diamond cufflinks, and dark sunglasses, worn indoors. Flanking him, standing, were two men who could only be described as associates. They were refrigerators in suits. At the near end of the table, Chloe was on her feet, her white blazer stained with sweat at the collar. She was mid-rant. Marcus was next to her, looking green, his hands shaking so hard he'd spilled a glass of water. They all stared. "Eleanor," Mr. Sanchez said, breaking the silence. His voice was a gravelly purr. He stood up slowly. "A pleasure. You are looking well. I was just meeting the new management." "You!" Chloe shrieked. The Polish was gone. This was the raw, panicked animal underneath. "You did this. The bank. The email. You can't be here. Security." Art Crowley just chuckled, a low rumble, and casually blocked the doorway with his entire body. "Mom?" Marcus whispered, his voice cracking. "Mom, what is going on? Who are these men?" I ignored them both. I walked, my heels clicking on the marble, down the length of the table. I stopped directly across from Mr. Sanchez. "Mr. Sanchez," I said, my voice resonating in the silent room. "I must apologize for the behavior of my children. They are new to this. They don't understand the value of legacy partners." "So it would seem," Sanchez said, his eyes invisible behind the shades. "They have breached a 25-year agreement. It is costly." "I sent you those papers," Chloe screamed, pointing a trembling finger at me. "I know what you did. You'll go to jail with them." "You think so?" I asked, turning to her. Art stepped forward. He placed the aluminum-sided briefcase on the table. Clack. Clack. The latches snapped open. He didn't remove the binder. He just let them look at it. "You're a fool, Chloe," I said, my voice dangerously calm. "You saw one page? You have no idea what's in here." I turned to my son. "Marcus, this is the part of the business I protected you from. This is the scorched earth file. It contains every deal, every favor, every cash payment, every logistics manifest that made Vanguard living possible. It's the blood in the foundation." I looked back at Chloe. "And I'm not on a single page. I've been retired, remember? My name hasn't been on a logistics contract in 5 years." Her face, which was already pale, went the color of ash. "But your name," I continued, "is on the new charter. You are the CEO of record. You are the one who just signed the paperwork liquidating the heritage assets, and you are the one who just breached a multi-million-dollar contract with Mr. Sanchez's associates. The why doesn't matter. The how is all that counts. And right now, you're holding the bag." Chloe crumpled. She physically fell back into her chair, her breath coming in ragged gasps. "You're a monster," she whispered. "I'm a founder," I corrected. "You just thought I was a mother." I looked at Mr. Sanchez. "We will, of course, be rectifying this misunderstanding. My company will pay the inconvenience fee for this breach, and the legacy contracts will be restored. Effective immediately. That is acceptable," Sanchez said, a thin smile playing on his lips. I turned my full attention to my son. "Marcus." He flinched. "You have one choice, and one choice only. You will sit here, and you will sign the documents Brenda is about to bring in. They will remove your wife from this company, from this building, and from our lives. They will transfer your stolen $1 million back, plus interest. You will sign over your new Vanguard Ventures title and take a demotion to head of VE procurement for the Heritage line at 1/10 of your salary. You will work. You will learn the business from the ground up, the way you were supposed to. Or you can walk out that door with her, and if you do, you will be cut off. The trusts, the condo, the cars, everything. Choose. Marcus looked at the snarling, defeated woman next to him. Then he looked at me, sitting there with Mr. Sanchez and his goons, the file open, and the power of the entire room in my hands. He was weak. He had always been weak. I'll stay, he whispered, not meeting my eyes. Good. I looked at Chloe. Her eyes were dead. You, I said, will take your severance. I've authorized a one-time transfer of $950,000. It's the $1 million you stole, minus the $50,000 for the Gulfstream you leased. You will sign a resignation and an NDA so binding that if you so much as think the word Vanguard, a lawyer will show up at your door. You have 60 seconds to take your purse and get out of my building. She didn't move. She was in shock. Art, I said. Art took a step toward her. That's all it took. She yelped, grabbed her bag, and fled. She ran from the room, and I heard her heels clicking frantically down the marble hall. I took my seat at the head of the table. My seat. I looked at Marcus, who had his head in his hands. I looked at Mr. Sanchez, who was slowly, almost imperceptibly, clapping. Now, I said, folding my hands on the polished wood. Brenda, send in the lawyers. Mr. Sanchez, let's discuss that inconvenience fee. I believe we have a company to save.